Do you think it's better to be loved or feared? It sounds like a simple question. But 500 years ago, one man dared to give an answer so controversial that it still shocks the world today. That man was Niccolò Machiavelli. And his answer was, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." This single line changed the way we think about power, politics, and leadership forever. Who was Machiavelli? Niccolò Machiavelli was not a king or a warrior. He was a diplomat and thinker in Florence, Italy, during the Renaissance. This was not a peaceful time. Florence was filled with political conspiracies, betrayals, and constant threats from rival states. Powerful families like the Medici ruled one day, and were exiled the next. Machiavelli lived through chaos. He negotiated with kings, popes, and ruthless commanders like Cesare Borgia. He watched leaders rise and fall. And he realized something: power was not about morality. It was about survival. The prince. After losing his position in government, and even being tortured, Machiavelli wrote the book that made him famous, The Prince. Unlike other philosophers, who wrote about justice and virtue, Machiavelli wrote about reality. He asked, what must a ruler actually do to hold power? The answers he gave were blunt, shocking, and brutally honest. He described power not as we wish it to be, but as it really is. The central idea. Machiavelli's central idea was simple: power is never given, it is taken. Leaders cannot rely on goodness or popularity alone. People are selfish. Fortune is unpredictable. Enemies are everywhere. To survive, a leader must be clever, cautious, and sometimes ruthless. This is why Machiavelli said it is safer to be feared than loved. Love can fade. People may turn against you when times get hard. But fear, if controlled, creates stability. Example from history. Think of Julius Caesar. He was admired and respected, but what truly secured his rule was fear of his military power. Or Cesare Borgia, whom Machiavelli admired. Borgia used both charm and fear to hold power. He was ruthless when needed, merciful when it served him. Machiavelli called him the perfect example of a prince. Modern examples. Even today, Machiavelli's lesson is alive. In business, Steve Jobs was not loved by all his employees. Many feared his criticism and perfectionism. But that fear pushed Apple to greatness. In politics, leaders who project strength, even if they are not loved, often endure longer than those who try to please everyone. Fear may not win hearts, but it wins stability. The Machiavellian mindset. Machiavelli's philosophy is not about cruelty for its own sake. It is about realism. He believed leaders should appear virtuous, merciful, honest, religious, but behind the mask, they must be ready to do whatever it takes to survive. As he said, everyone sees what you appear to be, but few experience what you really are. The key lesson: appearances matter, but survival requires strategy. Why he still matters. Why does Machiavelli still matter today? Because human nature hasn't changed. People are still ambitious, selfish, and quick to betray. His insights explain why some leaders succeed while others fail, why some businesses thrive while others collapse, why some individuals rise while others are forgotten. Machiavelli forces us to face the uncomfortable truth: power is not about being good. It is about being effective. Closing of Part 1. So as we begin this journey through Machiavelli's philosophy, remember this. Power is not given. Power is taken. Love is fragile. Fear endures. And if you want to understand how the world really works, you must learn to see it through Machiavelli's eyes. In the next part, we'll dive deeper into his life, and explore the dangerous world of Renaissance Florence that shaped his philosophy. What kind of world creates a thinker like Niccolò Machiavelli? Not a world of peace. Not a world of trust. But a world of constant war, betrayal, and ambition. To understand Machiavelli's philosophy, we must first understand Florence, the city where he lived, worked, and witnessed the brutal game of power. Florence, a city of two faces. In the late 1400s and early 1500s, Florence was the jewel of the Renaissance. Its streets were filled with art, music, and philosophy. Michelangelo sculpted David. Leonardo da Vinci sketched inventions ahead of their time. Botticelli painted the birth of Venus. On the surface, Florence was a paradise of culture and beauty. But beneath the surface, it was a pit of snakes. Powerful families like the Medici ruled the city, but rivals constantly plotted to overthrow them. Alliances shifted overnight. Neighbors became enemies. Friends became traitors. For Machiavelli, this chaos was not an abstract idea. It was daily reality. Machiavelli the diplomat. In 1498, at the age of 29, Machiavelli entered public service. He became a diplomat for the Republic of Florence. This role took him across Italy and beyond. He negotiated with popes, kings, and generals. He observed how leaders gained power, how they lost it, and how they kept it. Unlike philosophers who lived in libraries, Machiavelli studied power in the real world, through action, betrayal, and blood. Meeting Cesare Borgia. One of the most important figures Machiavelli ever encountered was Cesare Borgia, the ruthless son of Pope Alexander VI. Borgia was brilliant, cunning, and feared. He charmed allies, betrayed rivals, and crushed enemies with precision. Machiavelli admired Borgia's decisiveness. He called him an example of how a ruler should act, bold, ruthless when necessary, but always strategic. Although Borgia eventually fell when fortune turned against him, Machiavelli believed his methods were the closest thing to perfection in the art of ruling. The fall of Florence. But Florence itself was not safe. In 1512, the Medici family returned to power. Machiavelli, who had served the Republic, was suddenly on the wrong side. He was dismissed, accused of conspiracy, tortured, and exiled. One day he was a respected diplomat. The next, he was broken, humiliated, and cast aside. For many men, this would have been the end. But for Machiavelli, it was the beginning of his greatest work. The birth of the prince. In exile, Machiavelli began to write. Stripped of power, he reflected on everything he had seen: betrayals in Florence, the cunning of Cesare Borgia, the hypocrisy of popes, the weakness of mercenaries, the rise and fall of republics. From this reflection came The Prince, a book that revealed the rules of power as they truly are, not as we want them to be. He dedicated it to the Medici, hoping to win back their favor. But the book was too raw, too real, too shocking. Instead of praise, it earned him infamy. The reputation of Machiavelli. For centuries, Machiavelli has been called the teacher of evil. His name gave birth to the word Machiavellian, meaning cunning, ruthless, manipulative. But the truth is more complex. Machiavelli was not trying to create tyrants. He was trying to warn leaders. He wanted Florence, and Italy, to survive in a brutal world. His realism was not cruelty for cruelty's sake. It was survival. Why his world matters today. You might think Renaissance Italy is far from our lives today. But in reality, nothing has changed. The boardroom is just another battlefield. Politicians still betray their promises. Nations still shift alliances. And power still flows to those who understand the game. This is why Machiavelli's lessons endure. Because the world is still Florence, beautiful on the surface, dangerous underneath. Closing of Part 2. So now we understand the world that shaped Machiavelli. A world of art and brilliance, yes, but also of betrayal, ambition, and war. A world where survival depended not on goodness, but on cunning. In the next part, we'll go deeper into one of his most famous ideas: human nature. Because before you can rule others, you must first understand what people truly are. And Machiavelli believed people are not what they seem. What do you really believe about people? Are they loyal? Kind? Grateful? Or are they selfish, greedy, and quick to betray? Most philosophers before Machiavelli wanted to believe in human goodness. But Machiavelli looked at the world and said something different. Men are ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, and greedy. This was not cynicism. It was observation. And it became one of the cornerstones of his philosophy of power. The problem of trust. Machiavelli warned rulers never to rely on trust alone. Why? Because people's loyalty lasts only as long as it serves their own interests. They will praise you when times are good, but abandon you when hardship comes. They will promise loyalty, but break it when betrayal offers more rewards. For Machiavelli, this was not evil. It was human nature. And leaders who forget this truth will be destroyed. Masks and appearances. One of his sharpest insights was that people wear masks. They present themselves as virtuous and loyal, but their true motives are hidden. As Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are." In other words, never judge people by their words or appearances. Judge them by their actions. Historical example: shifting alliances. During Machiavelli's time, Italian states made and broke alliances constantly. Florence might be allied with France one year and betray them the next. Promises meant little. Self-interest ruled everything. Machiavelli saw this again and again, and he understood, a ruler who trusts blindly will be betrayed. Modern example: politics today. Think about modern politics. How often do politicians promise one thing during campaigns, only to do the opposite once elected? The lesson is the same: words are cheap. Interests are real. Business example: the workplace. In business, leaders see the same truth. An employee may appear loyal until a competitor offers a better salary. A partner may promise commitment until profit tempts them elsewhere. Those who trust blindly are often betrayed. Those who prepare for betrayal survive. The role of fear and self-interest. So if trust cannot be the foundation of leadership, what can? Machiavelli answered, fear and self-interest. People will stay loyal if disloyalty brings punishment. They will obey if obedience benefits them. Fear and reward are far stronger than trust or love. This is why Machiavelli said it is better to be feared than loved. Fear is predictable. Love is not. Everyday life lessons. What does this mean for us? In friendships, don't give blind trust. Notice how people act in hard times, not just good times. In business, contracts matter more than promises. Protect yourself. In life, expect self-interest. Don't be surprised when people act for themselves. Machiavelli doesn't tell us to hate people. He tells us to see them clearly. The harsh reality. Many prefer to believe in goodness and loyalty. But Machiavelli insisted, ignoring reality is dangerous. Leaders who see people as they wish them to be will fall. Leaders who see people as they truly are will survive. Closing of Part 3. So what have we learned? Machiavelli's lesson is simple but brutal. Trust is fragile, people are fickle, and loyalty fades when tested. A wise leader builds systems of control, fear, self-interest, discipline, not illusions of love or trust. In the next part, we'll explore another of his most famous insights: appearances. Why image and reputation often matter more than reality itself. Imagine two leaders. The first is wise, capable, and genuinely cares for his people, but he looks weak, hesitant, and uncertain. The second is corrupt, selfish, and cruel, but he appears strong, confident, and decisive. Which one do people follow? Machiavelli's answer is clear: the second. Because in politics, business, and life, appearance often matters more than reality. Machiavelli's insight. In The Prince, Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few know what you really are." Most people cannot see into your heart. They cannot know your true intentions. They only see what you show them. That's why leaders must master appearances. It is not enough to be good, you must appear good. It is not enough to be strong, you must appear strong. The mask of virtue. Machiavelli argued that rulers should appear merciful, faithful, humane, religious, and just, even if behind the mask they are ruthless, cunning, and strategic. The appearance of virtue keeps people calm and loyal. But the reality of ruthlessness allows survival when danger comes. This is not hypocrisy. This is survival. Historical example: the Medici. The Medici family of Florence understood this perfectly. They appeared as generous patrons of the arts, sponsoring painters, architects, and scholars. Their image was pious and noble. But behind the mask, they manipulated politics, bribed officials, and eliminated rivals. Their power lasted because they mastered appearances while practicing ruthless strategy. Modern politics example. Look at politics today. Campaigns are built on image. A smile, a handshake, a photo opportunity. These appearances often matter more than policy details. A candidate who appears confident, trustworthy, and strong wins votes, even if reality tells a different story. Machiavelli would nod. The image is more powerful than the truth. Business example, corporate reputation. The same is true in business. Many companies market themselves as ethical, sustainable, and socially responsible. Yet behind closed doors, they cut corners, exploit workers, or harm the environment. Their reality may be ugly, but their image protects them. Investors, customers, and the public judge by appearances, not hidden truths. Pop culture example, Game of Thrones. In Game of Thrones, this principle is everywhere. Ned Stark was honest and good, but he failed to manage appearances. He looked weak, and he paid with his life. Meanwhile, Littlefinger and Cersei Lannister mastered appearances. They projected loyalty and virtue while plotting treachery. They survived far longer. Audiences instinctively understand Machiavelli's truth: appearances rule. The double-edged sword. But appearances are dangerous too. If the mask cracks and people see the ugly reality, the fall can be catastrophic. That's why Machiavelli advised rulers to balance both, maintain the mask of virtue, but never forget the ruthless reality behind it. Appear good, act when necessary. Appear merciful, strike when required. Everyday life lessons. So what does this mean for us? At work, competence matters, but the appearance of competence matters more. Speak with confidence. Present yourself with authority. In relationships, people judge by what they see, not what they don't. Protect your reputation. In society, reputation is currency. Guard it carefully, because once it's gone, reality alone will not save you. The Machiavellian balance. Machiavelli is not telling us to lie endlessly. He is telling us to be strategic. To understand that people judge by appearances. To wear the right mask when needed. Because those who ignore appearances will be crushed by those who master them. Closing of Part 4. So what have we learned? Machiavelli's lesson is simple but powerful. Appearances often matter more than reality. Everyone sees what you show them. Few know who you truly are. The wise leader wears the mask of virtue, but keeps the strength of ruthlessness behind it. In the next part, we'll explore another harsh truth: morality versus power. Why good men fail, and why survival sometimes requires doing what is wrong. We like to believe that good people win. That honesty, kindness, and morality lead to success. But history tells a darker story. Time and again, the most virtuous leaders fall, while the ruthless survive. Machiavelli explained why. A man who wishes to act entirely up to his professions of virtue soon meets with what destroys him among so much that is evil. In other words, good men fail because the world is not good. Machiavelli's realism. Before Machiavelli, philosophers wrote about how rulers should behave. They spoke of justice, honor, and virtue. Machiavelli broke from this tradition. He argued that leaders must deal with the world as it is, not as it should be. If everyone else is ruthless and cunning, then a leader who is purely moral will be destroyed. Morality is valuable, but only when it helps survival. The limits of morality. Machiavelli did not say leaders should abandon virtue completely. But he warned that relying only on morality is dangerous. A leader who is too merciful allows chaos to spread. A leader who keeps every promise becomes predictable and weak. A leader who refuses to deceive will be deceived. Morality must be balanced with pragmatism. Historical example: Savonarola. Florence once followed a preacher named Girolamo Savonarola. He was deeply moral, demanding purity, honesty, and faith. For a short time, the people adored him. But Savonarola refused compromise. He ignored political reality. Soon, his enemies struck back. He was overthrown, excommunicated, and executed. To Machiavelli, this proved his point: good intentions alone cannot protect a leader. Modern politics example. In politics today, we see the same truth. Idealistic candidates often lose to ruthless strategists. Those who cling to doing the right thing without compromise are crushed by opponents willing to bend the rules. Voters admire honesty, but they follow strength. Machiavelli would say, morality without power is weakness. Business example. In business, many startups begin with noble missions: fairness, ethics, helping society. But without strategy, they fail. Meanwhile, companies led by harsh, pragmatic CEOs often thrive. Steve Jobs, for example, was not loved for his kindness. He was feared for his demands. Yet his ruthlessness built Apple into a global empire. Morality without results is forgotten. Strategy creates survival. Military example. The same applies in war. Leaders who hesitate out of morality often lose. But those who make hard, even ruthless decisions, can win and save more lives in the long run. General Sherman's harsh campaign in the American Civil War was criticized as cruel. But it shortened the war and saved thousands of lives. Cruelty, in this case, was more merciful than endless mercy. Machiavelli's advice. So what should a leader do? Machiavelli's advice was clear. Appear virtuous, but be ready to act against virtue. Use morality when it strengthens you. Abandon it when it threatens survival. As he wrote, "It is well to appear merciful, faithful, humane, sincere, religious, but you must have the mind so disposed that when it is necessary not to be so, you may know how to change to the contrary." Everyday life lessons. This lesson is not only for rulers. At work, honesty is good, but don't let it make you vulnerable. In relationships, kindness matters, but boundaries are necessary. In life, ideals inspire, but strategy protects. Machiavelli does not tell us to be evil. He tells us to be realistic. The tragedy of good men. The tragedy is that good men often fail because they refuse to adapt. They cling to ideals while others play the real game. Great leaders, however, balance morality and pragmatism. They know when to act with virtue, and when to act with ruthlessness. Closing of Part 5. So what have we learned? Machiavelli shattered the illusion that morality guarantees success. He showed that good men fail when they refuse to play the real game. Morality is useful, but survival comes first. In the next part, we'll explore Machiavelli's views on fortune and boldness. How much of life depends on luck, and how much depends on the courage to seize opportunity. Do you believe in luck? Some say life is all chance. Others say success comes only from hard work. Machiavelli had a different view. He argued that fortune controls half of our lives, but the other half is shaped by our own actions. And fortune, he said, favors the bold. Machiavelli's River of Fortune. Machiavelli compared fortune to a river. When calm, the river can be guided and controlled. But when it floods, it destroys everything in its path. The wise ruler prepares in advance, building dams and defenses, so that when fortune changes, he can survive. In the same way, life is unpredictable. But preparation and boldness allow us to master chance instead of being destroyed by it. Fortune as a woman. Machiavelli also wrote, "Fortune is a woman, and it is necessary, if you wish to master her, to conquer her by force." What did he mean? He meant that fortune does not favor the timid. She rewards those who act decisively, who take risks, who seize opportunities before they disappear. Historical example, Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar understood this. When he crossed the Rubicon, he took a bold gamble. Many would have hesitated, but Caesar acted. That single decision changed the course of history and made him master of Rome. Fortune gave him the chance. Boldness turned it into power. Modern business example. In the business world, boldness also separates winners from losers. Jeff Bezos saw the rise of the internet in the 1990s. Many ignored it. Bezos acted boldly and built Amazon. Elon Musk risked everything on Tesla and SpaceX. Fortune gave opportunities, but his boldness made them succeed. Countless others had the same chances. Few had the courage to act. Sports example. In sports, boldness often defines champions. Michael Jordan didn't hesitate to take the last shot. Tom Brady seized the chance when injury gave him a starting role, turning it into a legendary NFL career. Fortune opened the door. Boldness walked through it. The danger of hesitation. Machiavelli warned that hesitation is more dangerous than failure. As he put it, "It is better to act and repent than not to act and regret." A leader who waits too long loses the moment. Fortune passes quickly. Those who act boldly, even with risk, often win. Preparation and boldness. But boldness alone is not enough. A wise leader must also prepare for fortune's changes. Just as rivers flood, life can bring disaster. Savings, alliances, training, all are ways to prepare. When fortune shifts, the prepared survive. The bold thrive. Everyday life lessons. So what does this mean for us? Don't wait endlessly for the perfect time. Fortune rarely offers it. Act boldly when opportunities appear. But prepare in advance. Build skills, save resources, and create options so you are ready when fortune turns. Remember, the timid hope. The bold act. The wise prepare. Machiavelli's balance. Machiavelli believed fortune controlled half our fate. But the other half, our preparation, our boldness, was in our hands. The timid are crushed by fortune. The bold master her. Closing of Part 6. So what have we learned? Machiavelli teaches us that life is half chance, half choice. Fortune may be unpredictable, but boldness and preparation allow us to control it. Fortune favors the daring, not the timid. And survival belongs to those who act. In the next part, we'll examine one of Machiavelli's most shocking lessons, cruelty and mercy. Why harshness, if used wisely, can save more lives than endless kindness. We are taught to admire mercy. We believe kindness wins loyalty, and cruelty destroys it. But Machiavelli turned this idea upside down. He argued that cruelty, when used wisely and sparingly, can save more lives than endless mercy. It is one of his most shocking, but most practical, lessons about power. Machiavelli's principle. In The Prince, Machiavelli wrote, "Well-used cruelty, if one may call evil good, can be justified when it is employed once for all, and is necessary for security." The idea is simple. A single decisive act of harshness may establish order and prevent chaos. But endless mercy can allow instability, rebellion, and greater suffering. Historical example, Cesare Borgia. Cesare Borgia applied this principle. When he took control of Romagna, the region was lawless and violent. To restore order, he appointed a harsh lieutenant, Ramiro de Orco, who used brutal measures to crush crime. Once stability was restored, Borgia executed Ramiro in public. The people feared his cruelty but admired his justice. The result, peace. Machiavelli praised this as an example of cruelty that ultimately saved lives. American example, Abraham Lincoln and the Civil War. Even Abraham Lincoln, remembered as compassionate, understood this lesson. During the Civil War, he allowed General Sherman to carry out the March to the Sea, destroying Southern infrastructure. It was harsh, even cruel. But it broke the Confederacy's ability to fight, ending the war sooner and saving countless lives. Mercy would have prolonged the conflict. Decisive cruelty ended it. Corporate example. In business, the same principle applies. A CEO may need to lay off workers to save a company. It seems cruel. But avoiding layoffs out of mercy could bankrupt the company and destroy all jobs. Cruelty, if decisive, preserves survival. Mercy without limits leads to ruin. Pop culture example, The Godfather. In The Godfather, Don Vito Corleone practices controlled cruelty. He appears merciful and generous, But when betrayal threatens his family, he acts decisively and ruthlessly. Michael Corleone explains it best. It's not personal. It's strictly business. Audiences understand instinctively, cruelty, when necessary, protects stability. The danger of excessive cruelty. Of course, Machiavelli warned that cruelty must never be constant. Endless harshness breeds hatred. And hatred is deadly for leaders. Cruelty must be rare, swift, justified, followed by stability. The ruler who is cruel without reason becomes a tyrant, and tyrants fall. The fragility of mercy. On the other hand, mercy without strength invites chaos. A leader who forgives every betrayal encourages more betrayal. A commander who spares rebels may face new revolts. Mercy feels good, but if it undermines order, it leads to greater harm. Everyday life lessons. This lesson applies beyond politics. At work, managers who never discipline weak employees hurt the whole team. Sometimes decisive action is necessary. In family, parents who never set boundaries raise children who lack respect. In personal life, forgiving toxic people repeatedly allows them to keep hurting you. Cruelty, in these cases, means setting firm limits. Mercy alone is weakness. Sports example. Great coaches often appear cruel. They push players beyond comfort, demand perfection, and cut weak performers. It seems harsh. But it builds discipline and champions. Mercy without toughness would never create winners. The Machiavellian balance. The key is balance. Use cruelty rarely, decisively, and with purpose. Use mercy to win loyalty, but never let it weaken authority. Avoid hatred at all costs. This is the art of ruling, knowing when to be merciful and when to be harsh. Closing of Part 7. So what have we learned? Machiavelli showed that cruelty and mercy are not opposites, they are tools. Cruelty, when controlled, can create stability. Mercy, when unlimited, can cause chaos. The wise leader knows when to use both. In the next part, we'll explore another foundation of Machiavelli's philosophy: arms and laws. Why laws mean nothing without the force to defend them. What keeps a nation alive, laws or weapons? We often believe that justice, constitutions, and agreements protect us. But Machiavelli gave a harsher answer. The main foundations of all states are good laws and good arms. And because there cannot be good laws without good arms, it is arms that make good laws possible. In other words, laws are powerless without the strength to enforce them. Machiavelli's principle. For Machiavelli, laws are important, but they are fragile. A law is only as strong as the force behind it. A contract without enforcement is paper. A constitution without power is decoration. This is why he argued that rulers must always prepare for war. Peace is temporary. Force is permanent. Florence's mistake. Machiavelli saw this truth in Florence. The city relied on mercenaries, soldiers for hire. But mercenaries had no loyalty. They deserted in danger, betrayed their employers, or switched sides when offered more money. Florence had laws, wealth, and culture, but no reliable arms. And so Florence was weak. Machiavelli concluded, a state that cannot defend itself cannot survive. Historical example, Rome. Rome rose to greatness not only because of its laws, but because of its legions. The Roman Republic had a system of justice, but it was the army that gave those laws weight. Without soldiers to enforce them, Rome's laws would have been ignored. Good arms built good laws. American example, George Washington. The same principles shaped the United States. The Declaration of Independence was powerful words, but without George Washington's army, it would have been meaningless. Only through military strength did those words become reality. This is Machiavelli's lesson in action: arms give life to laws. Modern example, the U.S. military. Even today, the United States maintains one of the most powerful militaries in the world. Why? Because leaders know that diplomacy and law only work when backed by strength. Nations with weak arms may speak of justice, but their words carry little weight. Nations with strong arms shaped the world. Machiavelli on mercenaries. Machiavelli especially hated mercenaries. He argued they are unreliable, cowardly, and dangerous. A prince who relies on mercenaries is doomed. Instead, a ruler must have his own citizens trained, disciplined, and loyal. True security comes from within, not from outsiders. Business parallel. The same idea applies in business. A company that outsources all its strength, its innovation, its leadership, its culture, cannot survive. Just as a state needs its own arms, a company needs its own foundation of talent and resources. Outsourcing everything is like hiring mercenaries. It works until the crisis comes. Sports parallel. In sports, laws are like playbooks. But arms are like the players. A brilliant strategy means nothing without the strength and skill to execute it. Champions are made not by rules, but by performance. The fragility of laws without arms. History proves Machiavelli right. After World War I, the League of Nations promised peace. But it had no arms to enforce its rules. When aggressors rose, it collapsed. Good laws without good arms are illusions. The balance of arms and laws. But Machiavelli was not glorifying force alone. He insisted on balance. Arms without laws create tyranny. Laws without arms create weakness. Only when both exist, laws to guide, arms to enforce, can a state endure. Everyday life lessons. What does this mean for us? In business, contracts mean little without the power to enforce them. In personal life, promises are empty without the strength to uphold boundaries. In society, justice requires consequences, or injustice will rule. Force is not always violence. It can mean influence, resources, or discipline. But Machiavelli's point is clear: without strength, ideals collapse. Closing of Part 8. So what have we learned? Machiavelli revealed that laws and justice are not enough. Without arms, without power, they are fragile illusions. The wise leader builds both, laws to inspire, arms to protect. In the next part, we will turn to one of Machiavelli's most famous and feared lessons: love versus fear. Because, as he wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." Do you want to be loved or feared? It sounds simple, but Machiavelli turned it into one of the most powerful and controversial questions in history. His answer? Brutal and unforgettable. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. Why love fails. Machiavelli explained that love is fragile. People love you when times are good. They admire you when you provide benefits. But when hardship comes, when sacrifice is required, love fades. Loyalty based on love is unreliable. Gratitude is short-lived. And admiration often turns to resentment the moment interests change. Why fear endures. Fear, however, is more dependable. When people fear the consequences of betrayal, they are less likely to betray. Fear creates stability. Fear ensures obedience even in difficult times. Machiavelli was not celebrating cruelty. He warned against hatred. But he argued that fear, carefully balanced, is a stronger foundation than love. The danger of hatred. Machiavelli made an important distinction. Fear without hatred is safe. Hatred is deadly. A ruler who is merely feared can endure. But a ruler who becomes hated unites enemies and invites rebellion. That's why cruelty must be decisive but limited. Leaders must inspire respect and caution, not blind hatred. Historical example: Roman emperors. Roman history is full of examples. Emperors who tried to be loved, generous, merciful, indulgent, were often betrayed. Their popularity could not protect them. But emperors who were respected and feared, like Augustus, created stability that lasted for generations. Love made rulers popular. Fear made them safe. American example: politics. In modern American politics, leaders who try to please everyone often fail. They are loved by some, but not respected. Their popularity fades quickly. Meanwhile, leaders who project strength, even if they divide opinion, often endure longer. They may not be loved by all, but they are feared by rivals and respected by followers. Machiavelli would say, fear is a more reliable foundation than love. Business example, CEOs. The same is true in business. Steve Jobs was not a lovable leader. Many employees feared his criticism and demands. But that fear produced results, and made Apple one of the most powerful companies in the world. CEOs who aim only to be loved often avoid hard decisions. They hesitate to discipline, and they lose control. Fear, when balanced with respect, builds results. Pop culture example, Game of Thrones. In Game of Thrones, this lesson is clear. Ned Stark was loved for his honor, but he failed to inspire fear. His enemies exploited his goodness, and he lost his life. Tywin Lannister, however, was feared. His rule was harsh but stable. His children and rivals respected him not out of love, but out of fear. Audiences instinctively understood Machiavelli's truth. Love is fragile, fear endures. Everyday life lessons. What does this mean for us? In leadership, aim for respect more than affection. Respect often comes with a degree of fear. In personal life, kindness is good, but without boundaries it invites exploitation. In society, admiration fades, but strength commands lasting attention. Machiavelli's point is not to abandon love. The ideal is to be both loved and feared. But when forced to choose, fear is safer. The Machiavellian balance. The art of power is balance. The best leaders inspire both love and fear. Washington was admired, but also respected and feared by enemies. Lincoln was compassionate, but also firm and unyielding. But when balance is impossible, Machiavelli insists, choose fear. Because people may abandon a leader they love, but they will hesitate to betray a leader they fear. Closing of Part 9. So what have we learned? Machiavelli revealed that love is fragile and temporary, while fear is stable and reliable. A wise leader avoids hatred, but accepts fear as a foundation of power. In the final part, we will bring together everything we've learned: human nature, appearances, morality, fortune, cruelty, arms, love, and fear, and reveal Machiavelli's ultimate truth. Power is never given. It is taken. 500 years ago, Niccolò Machiavelli dared to write down the truths most people were too afraid to admit. That book was The Prince. And its message was clear: power is not given, it is taken. Recap of the journey. In this series, we've uncovered Machiavelli's most important lessons. In Part 1, we began with his shocking question: is it better to be loved or feared? In Part 2, we stepped into Florence, the city of art and betrayal, that shaped his mind. In Part 3, we faced his brutal view of human nature: selfish, fickle, and untrustworthy. In Part 4, we learned the importance of appearances, and why image beats reality. In Part 5, we saw why morality alone destroys leaders. In Part 6, we discovered that fortune favors the bold. In Part 7, we uncovered the paradox of cruelty and mercy, why harshness can bring order. In Part 8, we learned that laws are useless without arms to defend them. In Part 9, we confronted the heart of Machiavelli: fear is more reliable than love. Now, in this final part, we put it all together. The Machiavellian truth. Machiavelli does not describe the world as we wish it to be. He describes it as it is. People betray. Fortune changes. Appearances deceive. Morality collapses under pressure. Power belongs not to the good, but to the prepared. Not to the timid, but to the bold. Not to the loved, but to the feared. This is the playbook of power. And it is timeless. Examples in history. From Julius Caesar to George Washington, from Lincoln to modern leaders, from ruthless generals to visionary CEOs, Machiavelli's lessons echo across centuries. Leaders who ignored reality were destroyed. Leaders who embraced strategy, balance, and boldness survived. The world remembers not those who were simply good, but those who were effective. The modern world. You might think these lessons belong to the past, but look around. In politics, in business, in sports, in culture, the same rules apply. Power respects strength. Fortune rewards boldness. Appearances shape reality. Fear endures longer than love. Nothing has changed. Machiavelli is as alive today as he was in Renaissance Florence. The personal challenge. So what does this mean for you? It means you must stop expecting the world to reward goodness alone. It means you must open your eyes to reality, not illusions. It means you must prepare, act boldly, protect your reputation, and command respect. Machiavelli does not tell us to be cruel for no reason. He tells us to be wise, strategic, and realistic. Because the game of power is always being played, whether you join it or not. Final lesson. Machiavelli's ultimate truth is simple but unforgettable. Power is never given. It is taken. Those who wait to be handed power will be forgotten. Those who seize it will be remembered. Call to action. If this journey has opened your eyes, then this is just the beginning. Here on Philosophy of Power, we decode the timeless lessons of Machiavelli and reveal how they shape the world today. Backhand index pointing right. Subscribe now and continue learning the art of power. Backhand index pointing right. Like this video to spread the truth. Backhand index pointing right. Share it with those who still believe power is about kindness alone. Because knowledge is power. And Machiavelli's wisdom is the first step to mastering it. Closing line. The world has not changed. Human nature has not changed. And as long as ambition, rivalry, and power exist, Machiavelli's playbook will remain eternal.